Yeah, the face masks.
Okay, friends. Hello, hello. I got something more congenial behind me, um, namely the logo for the Moria Federation, however small that may be, and some nice verging on indigo blue. So we are here. Michael informs me. I always lose track, unfortunately, on program number 40. I'm going to do just a little bit of a review. We have quite a bit going on here tonight. At 10 o'clock, excuse me, 8 o'clock p.m. GMT, we have our daily USA Vigil meditation. And I think at 11, let's see, probably 9 o'clock GMT, the 2025 group, 2025 initiative group, has its daily vigil meditation, and Tuya will be leading that this evening. So if you have the link to 2025, I'm sure Sasha and Katya are very happy to welcome you uh, to attend that. So quite a bit going on, and I just want to welcome those of you who have managed to come here. Of course, Michael helping stabilize the ship all the time, and Tuya's here too. And then let's see if I can do this in the proper manner. So just to welcome Anne and Parker, Annette, Anthony, Ario, Astra, Karsten, Catherine, Cindy, Deborah, Francois, Georgina, and let's bring some more people in here. It's not the easiest thing to do. Heike, hi, and Ishtar, Joe Garceau, and Joan, Johi, and Karen, Lorianne, and Martine. Also Nathalie and Pablo, Risto, and Sandra, and Vivian, Yvonne, and Zenaidi. So welcome everybody, and glad you could be with us. Well, you know, I'm trying these days to relate what we're talking about to the ongoing brazen uh, manipulation which is in process in the United States as the present occupant of the White House continues to uh, brazenly use presidential power to overturn the results of a legitimately held election. So that's why our vigilance is required, and that's why we constantly, day by day, day after day, realizing that global implications are part of this difficulty, why we focus in these vigils on maintaining our point of tension so that we can oppose, you know, we can oppose this um, shameful and unprecedented attempt to rob the people of their will. And that's, you know, we do what we do to try to do our little bit in occultism um, to be on the right side. Hierarchy, of course, chooses sides when we're faced with representatives, unwitting representatives probably, of cosmic evil. And these representatives have appeared throughout history, in Rome in the period of the French kings, in the period of fascism and Nazism in the 20th century. And unfortunately now again attempting to block, obstruct, and delay the incoming of a better way attuned to the Aquarian possibilities. So let us, as we have been doing, begin with the second of the great invocations. Let the lords of liberation issue forth. Let them bring succor to the sons of men. Let the rider from the secret place come forth, and coming save. Come forth, O mighty one. Let the souls of men awaken to the light, and may they stand with massed intent. Let the fiat of the Lord go forth. The end of woe has come. Come forth, O mighty one. The hour of service of the saving force has now arrived. Let it be spread abroad, O mighty one. Let light and love and power and death fulfill the purpose of the coming one. The will to save is here. The love to carry forth the work is widely spread abroad. The active aid of all who know the truth is also here. Come forth, O mighty one, and blend these three. Construct a great defending wall. The rule of evil now must end. Okay, thank you. And a few more people have joined us. I can't pick them out exactly, but just welcome to everybody. And we will concentrate on the matter at hand. I'd like to, this is a tiny little review, but we did review the idea of the energy that comes from the cosmic mental plane, whether that is in the realm of Agni, which is the personality of the solar logos and comprises the 18 lower cosmic subplanes, or whether somehow the causal body of the solar logos is also involved. But I just want to mention that when we deal with the evolution of mind or manas, we deal with different capacities which are developing within the lesser beings that are under the supervision of the great beings on the cosmic mental plane. We might say then that how does the mind evolve? And My idea here is that by discovering, understanding, and creating archetypal arrangements in the non-archetypal worlds, pretty much in the lower realms, there is a chaotic and non-archetypal relationship between the various factors. And through the power of mind, increasingly developing, the lower worlds, we can call them the mosaic worlds, because they're made of so many different parts and pieces, as it were, become related in a way which reflects the archetypes found on the higher planes. And, you know, it's a question of the world of being and the world of becoming. And now we're talking about the world of cosmic being in relation to the worlds of cosmic becoming. And always becoming, in the sense of Greek philosophy, must begin to approximate the archetypes in the world of being. So here are some of the capacities of the evolving mind. Just think about them as we think about our own mind evolving. So an evolved mind can work with complex contents. Simplification is a great virtue, but not premature simplification. It really has to be a synthetic simplification and not just ignoring necessary detail. So it can handle a lot more, the evolved mind can. And an evolved mind has a facility with language, with symbolism, with that which represents what is registered by the senses, both low and high. So there are these symbols which can be manipulated and put in relation with each other, and they do represent the registrations on many different levels, on many different points of tension. Here are just a few things that an evolved mind can do, and you can check it out with your own mental capacities, which obviously, when we study with DK, are always evolving and becoming higher. I've sometimes met some of my earlier associates that I haven't seen for 50 years, maybe more, and I really realize what study with Master DK has given to me, and probably you will realize also when you look at early days of thinking and later days after having studied with him through his books. So an evolved mind can develop intelligent will, the idea that you must mind. Will and mind are related here. An evolved mind can vitalize thought processes which occur in the lower mind, vitalize and properly relate them in a more archetypal manner. An evolved mind can consciously build thought forms. Not, the throat center of the average individual is ruled by the Earth, a non-sacred planet which represents a certain lack of discipline in the generation of thought, but before long, one becomes an aspirant and disciple, and then Saturn steps in, and you have a very purposeful development of thought forms. Eventually, also, Uranus and the seventh ray entered the throat center, and we have the building or the use of the magical words. An evolved mind can successfully correlate, find points of similarity between things and points of difference. So it can connect up a whole field of experienced mosaic pieces so that they really begin to reflect something higher. An evolved mind can reason through logic and thus, even though in a manner more delayed than the intuition, can come into sight of the truth. It's a laborious method, but it's something we have to go through before the intuition is ours. An evolved mind has right memory, active memory, and that's so important because the present is based upon the past, and if we remember falsely, we have no foundation for truth in the present, nor in an anticipated future. And that brings us to the point that an evolved mind can plan in line with the plan and can anticipate with accuracy. An evolved mind is a bridging mind, and especially if the fourth ray is present. So the links between various types of perceptions are accurately perceived or bridged. The mind, when really evolved, is an organizing, arranging function. What is the hierarchy called? The society of organized and illumined minds. So we don't want to have a chaos, a jumble of thoughts. We want to arrange our thoughts in such a way that they lead to ever greater light and reflect in their outline higher archetypal truths. An evolved mind can originate, the birthplace of ideas. It can touch the birthplace of ideas, and it can create accordingly. Master Moria is calling, interestingly, the creative process, he's calling it the power of combination. In other words, putting things together in a way that really makes sense and leads to greater light instead of to misinterpretive confusion. So, you stand back and you say, how really does my mind function, and does it have access to energy flows from higher and higher points of tension? An evolved mind can abstract from many concrete examples, and that leads to the ability to work with the abstract mind, which is the lowest expression of pure reason found in the triad. And an evolved mind can translate. Now, the word translation in this context means that we move from the use of mind in the dense physical body of the solar logos and the planetary logos into the use of the transcendental mind on the Buddhic plane. So, following our ability to use mind, even soul mind, comes the translation into supermind, or, well, first maybe transcendental mind and then supermind. Normal mental processes are translated into the triadal use of mind. Abstract mind transcends transcendental mind, and supermind on the atomic plane ruled by Libra. And of course, with a highly developed mind, we can interpret with accuracy, bringing symbols and other registrations into the area of understanding. Such a mind will really be able to see in an understanding manner the relationship between things. The mind can be also like an X-ray and can penetrate apparently opaque situations and understand cause and effect. And penetration is related to the understanding of cause and effect. It's an ability that particularly is associated with the fifth ray, which is the ray of knowledge, the ray of archetypal ray of mind and knowledge. So, how well can we relate cause and effect? It depends upon the development of our mind. With the developed mind, we can live scientifically as well as intuitively. And it really takes both to manage our life successfully, especially as we begin to evolve into the disciple and initiate. And yes, of course, I mentioned the intuition. And oftentimes we take thoughts from other people and from various books and statements that others are responsible for, but it seems obvious that an evolved mind really can learn to think for itself and not always have to appropriate from others the content of its thought. Master DK asked us how much of the mountain of vision, which involves a lot of thinking, how much of that mountain of vision have you climbed for yourself, he says. And, it's one thing to absorb what well-regarded people say, and it's another thing to see for yourself, to think for yourself, to climb that mountain on your own power and not simply be one who only reflects the thought of others. You can use such thoughts as jumping off points and indications for a future relationship with higher thought. But although we can quote, as it says, chapter and verse, so many people in relation to the Bible Christian Bible or Old Testament can quote chapter and verse, how much do they really understand for themselves? So those are, some of the qualities of mind. I'm remembering that the factors of intelligence have been studied, and over 125 factors have been isolated that involve intelligence and our use of intelligence. Of course, so much depends upon who the researcher is and where the distinctions are seen. So, again, I say I have worked hard over the years to give written commentary on these matters. And if you have the patience, you can find them on Makara, and you will find a lot of elaboration on what the Tibetan has said. And not only elaboration, but a bridging activity, a mercurial activity, linking things up. You may find it profitable if you want to use your time in that way. Obviously, the Tibetan has given us more, he says, than we can ever absorb. And, if you offer elaborations upon all that he's given, well, then indeed it's more than we can absorb. But a few points of real illumination and of real interest can come into our consciousness. We don't all have to seek the light in the same way. There are lots of ways to seek the light, and eventually we call that seeking of the light the building of the Antakarana, and everybody does it in his or her own way. Now let's see, we did talk a little bit last time about the evolution of the spirit, and basically said that it is not spirit that evolves. What evolves is the capacity of the form to receive the presence and influence of spirit in a way that a fuller and fuller expression of spirit can occur through the form. Sometimes the word spirit is related to spiritual and thus to the soul, or to spirit and the spiritual triad, but sometimes it is related to the monad. And the essential monad does not evolve. Now, that may seem a hard thing to say. The monadic vehicle may evolve. Any vehicle may evolve, but essence, which is pure being, does not evolve. So I tried to emphasize that point last time. And DK basically told us, don't expect to find or to be able to express or receive all that may be found in the higher worlds. And he says here that just as it is not possible upon the physical plane for the physical vehicle fully to express the total point of development of the ego or higher self, the ego finally representing the spiritual triad. So it is not possible even for the ego, the sort of divisions of will, wisdom, and activity of the monad. So it is not possible for the ego fully to sense and express the quality of spirit. And when he says the quality of spirit, it's not the essence, it's the will, wisdom, and activity which derive from that volatile essence, which is at the heart of every monad and is the same everywhere and in all times and places.
Michael,
Yes.
would you like to change your screen share to show what you're reading?
What I'm actually looking at. Why not? Thank you, Michael. Okay, that's right. Looking for the place where I might be able to do that, huh? Okay, so basically I'm looking at the evolution of spirit, right? And
Yes.
I hope that you were able, I hope, uh, but do not hope too highly, that you saw those factors of mind. I hope I had them up. I don't know. I hope so. Otherwise, it was just verbal. Okay. Well, I thank you for your reminder.
It was verbal, but it's all good.
I see. Oh goodness, I should have done that. But I'll tell you what I will do is just so I can say that it did take place, and that if you want to freeze the screen any place, you will see these factors of mind. And here they are under point A. So there you can, it sometimes helps to see as well as to hear. Okay, so just let me know if I go off on a verbal rant and forget to show what I mean to show. Thank you for intervening. Okay, now back to cosmic fire in the text. Um, so anyway, he says that even the ego, this, which in one respect is the soul in the causal body, and in another respect is the spiritual triad itself, dividing the will, wisdom, and activity of the monad into three parts: spiritual will, intuition, and abstract mind. Even that cannot fully express the quality of the spirit. Hence, the utter impossibility for human consciousness justly to appraise the life of the spirit or monad. Well, we reach out towards it, and we try to make an approximation, but the lesser just doesn't contain the greater unless we become very philosophical and say the greatest of all is indivisible. I mean, we can do that, but in the practical world of the Mahamaya, just the ordinary world around us, the lesser does not contain the greater does contain the lesser. So we have here, we can't really know what is going on in the life of the monad as much as we speculate, but we can maybe know a little more than we knew. Um, we see here the working out of the flame divine under the law of synthesis. The law of synthesis blots out all form, but doesn't make the form disappear. So it blots out the reality of the form and changes that reality into actuality. I mean, there it is, it's presented to us, but something more real is prominently present. And we somehow are so fixated upon that which is more real than that the usual form no longer captivates us as if it were real. So, working out under the flame divine, the law of synthesis, the first of the cosmic laws, a generic term that will be seen to include law of attraction and repulsion and law of economy. And from all of this, a type of motion occurs, which is a blend of all three. It's rotary, it's progressive, and thus it is spiral cyclic. Now, going on here, he says the whole matter dealt with in this treatise concerns the subjective essence of the solar system, not primarily the the spiritual, the objective, or the spiritual aspect, the subjective essence. And by that, he basically means that this is a book about solar fire, even though he does spend some time dealing with fire by friction and also electric fire. They are, one of them is a natural extension of the development of solar fire in the life of the one who expresses it, and the other is a predecessor going before and leading eventually in a foundational way into solar fire. But, it's a book that's over 1,200 pages long, and the vast majority of it deals with what we are subjectively, not what we are spiritually or objectively. I hope we get the idea. Of course, our spiritual nature is of the essence, literally of the essence. And maybe, who knows, how far he might take that in his new installment. And the objective aspect of our nature is easily detected. And it's the most obvious thing about us. And it is confusing because it's what we see of ourselves and the environment. And we think, well, that's real, but it's not real. It is derivative. It is actual, but not real. Actuality derives from reality. Actuality derives from reality. So this whole matter concerns the entities who indwell the form, just like we are the indwelling soul, you might say. We, in a more real way, are the soul in incarnation. We are an entity who is indwelling a form. And one day we will learn to come and go at will from that form. Maybe once the sixth petal is completely opened and, following upon the second degree, that kind of thing can be learned. The entities who indwell the form, who demonstrate as animating factors. Now, anima means soul, okay? So an animating factor is a soul center, a soul presence. Animating factors through the medium of matter. Objectivity and matter are the same. And we are the subjective animating factor. We are the soul. I mean, more essentially, we are the spirit, but for the time being, it's quite enough to realize ourselves as the soul and to focus increasingly within the causal body. So it concerns entities who indwell the form, who demonstrate as animating factors through the medium of matter, and primarily through the etheric matter. There's a way in which a master can look at your etheric body and pretty well tell what's going on in the causal body and vice versa. Looking at the egoic lotus causal body and being able to determine then what's going on in the etheric body. About these entities, they are they who are evolving a second faculty, the fire of mind, the solar fire of mind, and who are essentially themselves points of fire. This is a deeply occult statement. They are points of fire cast off through cosmic friction, produced by the turning of the cosmic wheel, swept into temporary limited manifestation, and due eventually to return to their cosmic center. Now that, you will recognize that, and so do I, as a deeply esoteric statement. And I'll try to, use a little different color here to distinguish it. The whole book is concerning these types of entities, and it's very interesting, isn't it, that we are points of fire, and cosmic friction, the chafing of two wheels together, um, and in the turning of a cosmic wheel, we are put into a kind of individual condition. Our individuality arises. Individuality is the nature of the soul. And the soul, as the soul in incarnation, is swept into a temporary, limited manifestation through this form, and eventually will return to their cosmic center, which I think we could look at as a kind of a cosmic soul on the cosmic mental plane. So these souls that submerge themselves in objectivity, they will return eventually, plus the result of evolutionary growth, and through assimilation will have intensified their fundamental nature and be spiritual fire plus fire monastic. At the heart of the soul is the essence of all things, and it's found in the jewel in the lotus, which is the projected monad. But in addition to that ongoing identity as spiritual fire, there will have been the growth of knowledge through the mind on that pilgrimage which the soul takes, and that pilgrimage which the soul takes is part of the greater pilgrimage of the monad. So there's still a lot to understand here about these subjective points of fire, which we are, and how cosmic friction creates their emergence. In other words, there's something about the descending of the solar angel, there's something about the descending of the human monad which depends upon cosmic friction. And I won't even pretend to know all about that. It's just something that we have to study. The internal fire of matter is called in the secret doctrine fire by friction, and we are long familiar with it. It is the fire of objectivity, and we've been dealing with it in terms of mistaken identity for a very long time. The greater portion of our evolution as a subjective spark has been spent in the assessment that we are objectivity, and that we are, what fire by friction has produced, that we are. It takes a long time to determine that really we are the soul. We have to get into the development of the fourth petal, and in general enter the hall of learning before we begin to realize, wait a minute, there's something more than objectivity. There are a pair of opposites, and we are much more the higher of this pair than we are the lower, which is instrumental to the higher. Now, if you think that that's an exaggeration, just, go around and ask people about the meaning of God immanent, of God within them, at their present stage of assessing their identity. And I think you will find that there may be a belief in a transcendental God but not in the fact that the higher of the pairs of opposites tells us that we are actually that God within. That's learned in very difficult ways during the hall of learning, and then we are ready for an intensification of that realization as we pass through the hall of sacrifice, the hall of initiation. So anyway, fire by friction is objective and customary. But, says the Tibetan, it is an effect and not a cause. It derives from a higher fire, and it derives from emanation. And at first, when emanated units come in contact with each other, they don't really know how to interact. They react in a Martian, frictional manner. And so, hence on the lower planes, there's just all kinds of warfare between the different units, the different rays, the different astrological signs, as they learn through rather crude contact, the nature of each other. They bump up against each other first before they can really appreciate that they are part of a unity with each other. So the thing that we have considered most real, namely the physical body, is really an effect and not a cause, and yet we give the greater portion of our attention to that physicality. I mean, just look at the TV, and it's all pandering to the physical body, its wants, its needs, its appetites, its desires, whatever. The physical body is the main thing, which is really upside down, isn't it? So as students of occultism, we learn how to withdraw the soul in incarnation from identification with the lower vehicles. So it's an effect. Fire by friction is an effect. It is produced by the two fires of spirit and of mind, electric fire and solar fire. Let's just say the solar fire is so much more than just intellect, than just analysis, that it's so much more than just the cool appraisement of relationships. It has a very magnetic aspect to it, which joins things together. So, fire by friction, caused by two fires of spirit and mind, contacting each other through the medium of matter. So, the Father and the Son, as kind of a unit, or the Father and the child, um, work out their dharma, their relationship in the field of matter or in the field of objectivity, in the field of maximum separation, and they apply to that separation their own quality, which ends the illusion of separation. So, the energy demonstrates in matter itself as the internal fires of the sun. In other words, these higher energies, when in matter, demonstrate as internal fires of the sun, of the planets, and find a reflection in the internal fires of man. So basically, we're looking at three of the atoms that we normally consider: the solar logoic atom, and we're looking at the planetary atom, and then the microcosmic atom. These higher fires find their way into the energy economy of the microcosm, which is the human being. and in a pretty parallel manner as well. Man is the divine, flame divine, and the fire of mind, two different fires, one of them electric, the flame divine, and the other solar fire, the fire of mind. Man is the flame divine and the fire of mind brought into contact through the medium of substance or form. So this is another one of those definitions which we might want to retain when looking at the true nature of man and evolution. When evolution ends, the fire of matter is not cognizable. It persists only when the other two fires are associated, and it does not persist apart from substance itself. So, one of the ways of looking at this is, for instance, that the densest physical matter will eventually disappear as the outer crust of certain planets, and we will be left with an etheric body and not a dense physical body. In the future, will it be in this solar system? Will it be in the next solar system? Eventually, that inheritance from a previous solar system will be etherealized, made into an ether. But all these aspects of personality will also um, be relinquished. And fire by friction covers more than just dense physical matter. It covers etheric matter, astral matter, and the matter of the lower mind. And all of that will one day disappear. Uh, there's and only the flame divine and the fire of mind will remain. And we begin to find that to be the case even with the egoic lotus, because a lot of the substance of the knowledge petals begins to dissolve at a certain point as you head into the fourth initiation, and you're left more with the intuitive spiritual aspect. Now, we don't know every step along the way, but we do know there is a descent into dense manifestation, and then the etherealization of the dense manifestation as the being becomes more essentialized on the higher plane. We're not there yet. We still have plenty of the dense manifestation to deal with, but one day we will be etheric beings and not etheric physical beings, and then progressively all of those personality vehicles will be dropped. Now, the next thing that we're going to deal with, but I don't think I can really go on because we have so many things going tonight, and I have to make sure that this program is pretty well no more than an hour and a half. So let's just, if I say here that we will, oh, this is it, end on 20 November 20, evening, the making even of the day, and begin on the 27th of November, a morning program. Must have a lazy finger there. So, morning program, and it'll be program 41. I think, we have a whole new subject here that we'll be getting into. And because we want to keep this at an hour and a half at the most, and because there might be questions, etc., um, this would be a good place to stop. I do want to say that although humanity in Lemurian days has pretty well passed through the first or Lemurian initiation, which adjusts the dense physical to the etheric body, there are still so many of those among us who are Atlantean in their consciousness. We don't have to say that it's, because you belong to a South Sea Island race or belong to an Oriental race that you are necessarily Atlantean in your consciousness. The form may be more inherited from the fourth root race, but consciousness is another matter. And when we talk about root races now, we have to talk about them in terms of consciousness. I mean, there are many people who have fifth root race forms, but they are still Atlantean in their consciousness. And there are those who are obviously, members of the Oriental group who are Aryan in their consciousness. They've gone into mental focus and not into control by the astral vehicle. But the Atlantean consciousness is our problem, and it is those people who, with some of the rigidities of lower mind and the idée fixe which arises from those rigidities, who are blocking progress into the Aquarian age because they want to hold on to faith and blind belief instead of allowing those to subside and true knowledge of an Aquarian kind to take their place. There are just so many people who are subject to demagoguery, and that relates us to what is going on right here. They they are still very much within their personality and not even focused within the highest type of energy within their personality. They're still focused astrally or kama manasically, with the emphasis upon kama rather than manas. It's just a developmental issue. And DK warned us that, some 100 years ago, that although it had not been the case, some of these less developed types, who have not maybe had as much time to unfold, some of these less developed types are finding their way into the United States and probably to participate in the denouement, which basically is the end of the Piscean sixth ray age. And that's where we can expect the various crises which already are indicated as those older methods of thought and emotional response try to persist instead of opening the door to the knowledge, the fifth ray, the seventh ray of the Aquarian age. So it's all a question of where you are working within your personality, within the dweller, and what higher points of tension are allowed in so that they can transform that dweller until it becomes the servant of the angel of the presence and not the opponent of the angel of the presence. In other words, we're facing a developmental issue here, and the different kinds of thoughts and emotional response that come from people who have varying degrees of experience, incarnational experience, and development. Now, these ideas would never be accepted at first, because, of course, it's said all men are created equal, et cetera, et cetera. That's a monadic statement. As monads, all human beings are created equal. They, come off the cosmic wheel and they descend through emanation, and they start out as essence. And that's the horizontal level. They are equal. But in terms of incarnational experience, then we have a hierarchical situation. And that kind of hierarchical situation is not accepted. It's looked at as elitism. It's looked at as an unjustifiable claim that some people are better than others, which simply means they've had more experience to sensitize and refine their form. But since reincarnation is not a widely accepted point of view among seriously thinking people, then the whole process doesn't make sense to them. And we cannot then distinguish between people on the basis of their reincarnational experience, because reincarnation is just not deemed to be a reasonable explanation for one very important aspect of human living. That's where our teaching ability comes in, as we try to help people who are rigid in their concrete mind and fairly passionate and violent in their emotions to realize that this law of progressive opportunity is a reality. And a lot of experiments are done, where people remember things, and it turns out that with no this life experience concerning those things, they are accurate. I may have mentioned that, someone who's promising along these lines draws a picture of a village. Well, it doesn't look anything like the village is now. But when the old maps are pulled out, then the drawing turns out to be accurate. Well, how did the man know? It was simply a question of having lived through that and somehow remembering through what is within the permanent atoms which retain memory, and just another piece of evidence. And there's a lady who thinks she's a writer, and she thinks she was Anne Frank. The Diary of Anne Frank being a kind of a well-known piece from the Second World War. And she and her family died in the concentration camps eventually, because they were captured after a long hiding. Anyway, this woman, believing that she was Anne Frank, was taken to the apartment of where the family hid out for so many months, even years. And she said, "Well, where are the pictures? Where are the pictures?" Apparently, on the wall at that time, there were many pictures. She didn't know that, but she knew it. And it turned out, when they investigated, that those that arrangement, which had since been taken apart, was in fact factual. And thus it goes with much of the reincarnational research, which, all of this will eventually be accepted, and a different attitude toward where people stand upon the ongoing path will be accepted. Right now, let's just say so much of humanity has to come into control of its astral body, and some kind of more reasonable mentality has to enter, and some kind of contact with the soul must be developed, and then the first initiation of humanity can be taken. That's what we're looking forward to. When the Christ appears, it will indicate that it has been taken. Now, look, we have about a little less than a half hour left, and maybe you want to say something, look at something. It looks like we have one hand that goes up. So, Michael, maybe you can field all of this for us, and I can give you my thoughts.
And Yvonne, you are unmuted. Please go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
You
Yes.
bet. You bet.
Okay, Michael, you mentioned two questions. You mentioned maybe 5 minutes ago that when someone's sixth petal on the egoic lotus opens and they've taken the second initiation, they're able to leave the body. I didn't get all of it. It just sort of,
At will. At will.
at will. I wondered if you'd tell a little bit more about that, and also about the law of rebirth. Is it only like the Christian sects that don't believe in the law of rebirth?
I think the Abrahamic religions, namely Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, in their exoteric presentations, do not believe in the law of rebirth. But in the esotericism, maybe of the Sufis and of the Kabbalistic Jews and of the mystical Christians, they do accept the idea of the law of rebirth. Yeah, so that is one factor. Let's see what's happening. I'm getting an echo. Maybe where's that echo coming from,
That
Michael?
echo is coming from Yvonne's computer.
Oh, you don't have maybe you don't have a headphone on, Yvonne.
No, I don't. No, I don't.
That's
I
that
can
will
mute.
put
I can
that
mute
will,
myself.
and you can go on and off. Otherwise, it provides an echo.
Okay.
So that's one thing. Those Abrahamic religions, they do not advance in their exoteric presentation the law of rebirth. Increasingly, they will. In their esoteric groupings, they believe in it. Now, let's see, again, what was the first question? I'm sorry that I lost track here. I gave you a thought about the second question, and the first question was, you can unmute yourself and tell me.
Okay, am I unmuted? It was, am I unmuted now?
Yeah, you're
Yes,
good.
you are.
You're good.
Okay, it was the sixth petal and the second
Yeah.
initiation and leaving the body.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Uh, Basically, what DK is saying, when the sixth petal is completely unfolded, it's an indication that the Neptunian second initiation has been achieved. And from that point on, a teacher can use the body, the apparatus of the chela, to overshadow that chela or even take over with the chela standing aside. Now, it's probably much more common even later at the third degree. Then it's really confirmed. But already, that ability to go through a kind of a Piscean experience of slipping out using Pisces and Neptune. You see, the sixth petal is a Pisces petal. It's a Virgo petal too, and both of those signs are signs of mediumship, where you can, in fact, be overshadowed by another energy, and this time in a legitimate way, not in terms of obsession or a battle or forcing someone out of their proper domicile. No, it is a cooperative venture that the second degree initiate can participate in. It doesn't mean that all of them will. It just means that they can, and especially if their astrology reinforces the Neptune, the Virgo, and the Pisces. You understand, if you begin at the first petal with Aries, you arrive at Virgo for the sixth petal. And we're told about Virgo that it's the sign of conscious mediumship. And then if you say, well, all of the petals in the Hall of Learning are actually water petals, then it goes petal 4 Cancer, petal 5 Scorpio, which I've talked about, and petal 6 will be Pisces, again ruled in a special way by Neptune. And Neptune, as you know, has that ability to withdraw from physical incarnation. And so the whole body can, the inner body, the inner soul in incarnation can rise up and withdraw. Now, DK gives us in Dyna 2 that falling asleep consciously kind of exercise. And it's a couple of pages, and he says, well, don't allow yourself to just drift off when you go to sleep. Of course, so many of us do at different times. It's probably unusual to fall asleep consciously, but instead keep your concentration and find yourself slipping through consciously through the ethers and then thence onto the astral plane, and you will stay conscious on the astral plane as you go to sleep. And that's what some people call lucid dreaming. Now, that is a conscious leaving of the body. So, it's not that everybody will have the facility to do that, but from that time onward, with Neptune, Pisces, and Virgo so strong, it is possible to achieve. And as I say, even more so after the third degree, when the Buddhic vehicle is organized in earnest. But it begins to be a conscious ability after the second degree. And it doesn't mean that it's the dharma of everybody to do that, It's just, it seems to be a requirement. The full unfoldment of the fifth petal indicates the first initiation. The full unfoldment of the sixth petal indicates the second initiation. And the full unfoldment of petals 7, 8, and 9, finally all together, indicates the third initiation. So first, second, and third, and the unfoldments are the phenomenal side of that interior conscious process. Now, more and more people will be taught how to leave their body at will. And let's not make too big a deal out of it, because in Atlantis, everybody could do it. But it was probably, very much controlled by glamour and so forth, such that there was one disciple in the Tibetans group that the Tibetan basically dismissed, because he says you're spending too much time on the astral plane with ancient illusions, and it all comes from the time when you were a monk and you were bored to death and you learned how to get out of the body and you spent a lot of time on the astral plane. Well, it's kind of a carryover, but that's not what we're looking for now. We're looking for something else. He was actually a first ray soul and a seventh ray personality with a fourth ray mind. And I forget if it was uh, BSD, maybe BSD. Well, you have the beauty was one of the words, and strength was another one of his words, and one other I forget what it was. But DK didn't need that from his students. He didn't want people to re-engage with ancient astral illusion just because they had the facility of going out of the body. Anyway, you know, if it's in our dharma to do so, we'll be able to do so. Sometimes it comes upon you as a surprise, you know, you wake up on the other side and what am I doing here, you know? So that's when a certain type of control is required.
Michael, the exercise of going to sleep that you were describing is part of the methodology that the Tibetan has given us in developing continuity of consciousness.
Right. Yeah, that's it. I mean, because so often, you know, we leave behind the dense physical plane, we fall asleep. And then maybe we wake up on the other side at some point, and we have dreams, and we may even have lucid dreams where we say, oh, here I am again, but we don't know how we got there. We don't have continuity in terms of how we got there. And we've not been able to sustain that movement from the normal physical plane registration to astral dream registration. And he's asking us that we learn how to make that a continuum. And so that's an important point to bring out, as Michael has. Okay. Anything else?
There is nothing more at the present written in the chat box, and there are no hands raised.
Okay, friends. Well, what are we doing? We're going through a difficult book that's over 1,200 pages long. And we're doing it in an associative manner. We're not just laser-like looking at one particular item of knowledge or a field of knowledge that we look at using precisely the fifth ray. Rather, we are looking at the associations that these indications imply. And so we're spreading out all through the book. It doesn't mean that we are initiates and can therefore absorb this book, but it does mean that we're on our way to having a deeper understanding of what is presented along the first and third ray line in a seminal manner. This is a seed book. It was written in 1925, 95 years ago. I think that's when it came out being published. And it links with so many different areas which he developed further as he was presenting the teaching. You know, the psychology books, the astrology books, the magic books, factors on telepathy, all of these things had further developments, but Cosmic Fire leads to them. And so, you know, eventually we're going to understand solar fire a whole lot better, but we'll also understand the roots of solar fire, the foundation of solar fire, the foundation of it. And we'll understand what solar fire can develop into as well when we study the last 100 pages or so. Now, remember, all of this stuff is already written out in, probably more detail than you want to get into, up until the last 100 pages or so. But then the last 100 pages are dealt with in video commentary on Makara. So if you feel like a real studential focus is indicated for you, you can get into these commentaries that are found on Makara. And I think they will do us some good in the assimilative process through which we should be passing now in preparation for heaven knows what, the third installment, the third in the series of bridging treatises. Okay. Is that it then, Michael? Is there no one else?
The appearance shows that to be it.
That's it. Okay. Okay, friends. Okay, well then, coming back to what we will deal with the next time. Let's see if I can. Okay, so we're going to deal one after another with the internal fires, and then with the fire of mind, and then with the fire of spirit, and then we'll get into further subdivisions, more detail, and we'll be discussing the great grand man of the heavens, the lion of cosmic will, who is the solar logos, and then the planetary logos or heavenly man. We'll be discussing that great entity, and finally ourselves, human or microcosmic man. This will pretty well take us right to the next big topic. So, and the big topic goes into still greater detail. Obviously, we're going to be dealing with the Kundalini in its 3 channels and various elementals and devas that have to do with fire. And let's see, this evolution of matter. Yeah, that's one of the charts on the 10 mantras, and probably from the Theosophist once again. Yeah, it must have been a heyday of summary in some of those 1899 editions where many broad perspectives were offered. Okay, let us close then with the great invocation, and then we'll get on to, and Michael, did you put the Zoom, you put something in the chat box there, didn't you?
If you're looking for the link to the upcoming Zoom meditation, I can put that in.
Yeah, that would be great. And then Tuya will be leading that, and that will be, of a practical nature. So the great invocation is what we'll do here. And there it is. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Okay, friends, as you go along in all of this, you will find your sphere of knowledge expanding. And you will find an increased ability to move from point to point within this sphere of knowledge, and a more comprehensive view of the ageless wisdom will be yours. So let us simply persist, and the rewards will be there, and the major reward will be not only our own understanding, but our ability to help others have more light in their consciousness, and more love in their heart, and more will, which correlates with the divine plan through their spiritual will nature. Okay, we'll be meeting in about a half hour for those of you who would like to join us, and Michael has given the link. It is a Zoom link, and I think it ends in the numbers 09 or something like that. I think.
That is correct.
Yeah, okay, good. That's it. We'll see you soon. Lots of love, many blessings, and thank you for continuing our studies and meditations together. We'll be having this on Makara before long. All the best to you, and bye-bye for now.